Labor Day 2015 and a possible turning point in the 2016 presidential campaign as the Democratic race erupts in new turmoil. This is Special Report. Good evening and welcome to Washington. I'm Shannon Bream in for Brett Baer. The Labor Day immediately preceding an election is seen as a sort of a white flag, signifying the start of the final furious lap in the campaign. This is the Labor Day before that Labor Day, but it nonetheless marks what could be a significant shift in Democratic Party politics. Hillary Clinton continues to hemorrhage in the polls, and Joe Biden continues to tease on a possible third run for the winner's circle. Correspondent Doug McKelway has tonight's top story.
Mr. Vice President,
hey,
sounds like you have a rationale for running.
I'm going to run part of this parade.
That is as close as Vice President Joe Biden has come to announcing his candidacy. But a new NBC Marist poll of potential Democratic voters gives him more reason than ever to enter the race. It shows Hillary Clinton faltering badly in New Hampshire. Vermont Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders is now up 9 points over Clinton, 41 to 32%, with Biden gaining ground at 16%. It's a tectonic shift from July, when Clinton held a 10% lead over Sanders.
I'm voting for you, definitely. It's an honor to meet you.
Clinton does better in Iowa, but has lost some momentum there, too, with Sanders now 11 percentage points behind her, Biden another 7 points behind him. Clinton spun the descent of her poll numbers this way.
I've always thought this was going to be a competitive primary, and I welcome that.
Perhaps sensing weakness, the undeclared Biden sounded more like a candidate than ever at a labor rally in Pittsburgh. He sang the praises of labor bigwig AFL-CIO President Richard Trumka and labor's role in a vibrant middle class.
And I've had his back and he's had mine, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the friendship. There's a simple correlation. Build labor, we build America. Build labor, we build the middle class.
That message is loaded with meaning. Organized labor is deeply opposed to the recent Trans-Pacific Partnership trade agreement negotiated by the Obama administration. Thus far, Clinton hasn't taken a position on TPP. Big labor is watching for which way she goes.
The difference is, if you get my vote, I come out on election day and I pull the lever. If you got my support, I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, I stuff 200 envelopes, I make 7 calls, I go knock on a few doors, and I get my neighbors all excited about voting for her as well.
Biden hasn't taken a position on TPP either, but Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, whom many see as a potential Biden running mate, has. Today she trashed TPP.
No one should lose a job in a trade deal that benefits giant corporations and leaves workers in the dust.
Both Clinton and Biden have to walk a very fine line on TPP. To come out against it would be to embarrass the president, for whom both worked. Bernie Sanders doesn't have that problem. He's a longtime opponent of TPP, calling it, quote, part of a global race to the bottom to boost the profits of large corporations and Wall Street by outsourcing jobs. Shannon?
And we'll talk with the panel about how important those labor union endorsements really could be in this race. Thanks, Doug. Well, on the Republican side, the expected Labor Day 2015 frontrunners are instead looking up at a non-politician whose appeal to the common man and woman continues to befuddle the experts. Chief political correspondent Carl Cameron checks out the GOP race.
GOP candidates fanned out across the early voting states for Labor Day, knowing what happens this fall may decide the nomination next spring.
America's a great place. We have our problems, but let's just be a little bit positive and count our blessings about what it means to be an American.
Presidential candidates have marched in the Milford, New Hampshire parade every 4 years for the last 6 decades. The Salem GOP picnic is almost as popular.
Whoever button you're wearing today, whether you've made up your mind for me or not, you know in your heart of hearts you just cannot wait to see me debate Hillary Clinton.
Donald Trump has extended his outsized lead. He says he may spend $1 billion of his own money, and after Labor Day, the TV ad wars start in earnest as the campaigns and super PACs start spending the millions they've raised so far. Trump leads in New Hampshire with 28%. John Kasich and Ben Carson are the only other candidates in double digits. In Trump's shadow, candidates not only stop getting headlines, donors stop returning their calls. Candidates unable to maintain steady TV ads and field organizing efforts will soon be in dire straits. Scott Walker spent the weekend on a rented Harley, touring the White Mountains, New Hampshire's Lakes region, and all 10 counties. He was the front runner with 20% in the polls 5 months ago. He's down to 4% now.
There's a lot of people out there that want to talk about what's wrong with America. I want to talk about what's right with America and how we make it better.
In Iowa, Trump has 29% of likely caucus goers, and Carson has a solid grip on second with 22%. That's 51% combined. Jeb Bush leads the rest of the pack with 6, and within the margin of error, that amounts to a 15-way tie. Trump says he sees both sides of the controversy over the incarceration of Clark County, Kentucky clerk Kim Davis, a Democrat, for refusing to issue same-sex marriages based on her religious objections. Trump says he understands her unwillingness, but she has a public duty to uphold the law. Kasich takes only the latter position.
I don't like the fact that she's sitting in a jail. That's just absurd as well. But I think she should follow the law.
Former pastor and Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee won the Iowa caucuses in 2008.
I think what we've seen here is the overreach of the judiciary. This, if allowed to stand without any congressional approval, without any kind of enabling legislation, is what Jefferson warned us about. That's judicial tyranny.
Huckabee plans a rally for Davis outside her jail tomorrow, as he puts it, to let the world know it's unacceptable to put a person in jail without bail because she followed her conscience. Meantime, there's some concern tonight in Kentucky that Texas Senator Ted Cruz wants to make a cameo at the Huckabee rally for Davis tomorrow, but that she may not want him there. Shannon?
It'll be interesting, and we will cover it as it plays out tomorrow. Carl, thank you. On this Labor Day, the Obama administration is making moves that could affect millions of American workers. Correspondent Kevin Cork has details from the White House.
Just who is responsible for subcontract employees? That was at the heart of the recent and unprecedented National Labor Relations Board decision. In a 3-2 party line vote with the Democrats in the majority, the NLRB decided subcontract workers could bargain with their employer's employer, a move that could change the nature of temporary staffing, contract work, even franchising. The NLRB found that companies could be responsible for how subcontractors are treated, forced to take part in collective bargaining, even be held liable for labor violations. That decision centered on a case involving the waste management company Browning Ferris, but its impact could be felt across the business spectrum, from restaurants to retailers to construction firms.
This decision potentially blows up the franchise business model.
Blows up because fast food franchisees, for example, would be responsible for employees and subcontractors. Heritage's James Shirk says that means labor costs will soar, especially if unions get involved.
And you make it a lot harder for a lot of Americans to actually get the chance to own their own small business.
In a release explaining its decision, the NLRB said, quote, "The board held that its previous joint employer standard has failed to keep pace with changes in the workplace and economic circumstances." Translation, there are more temporary and contract workers in the American workplace than ever, and they have far fewer employee protections, benefits, and rights.
What we're seeing from them is this constant war against unions.
Are you ready? This is our fight. This is our fight. We fight, we win.
At a raucous gathering in labor-friendly Boston today, President Obama was joined by fellow Democrat, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. And together they blamed GOP congressional lawmakers for fighting an effort to expand paid leave protection to the private sector, like the one he approved by executive action today for federal contractors.
This latest executive order, by the way, allows those employees who work as federal contractors to pick up 7 paid sick days a year as a contractor, and that could impact, Shannon, up to 300,000 American workers.
All right, we'll talk about it with the panel. Kevin Cork live at the White House. Thank you, Kevin.
You bet.
Up next, more chaos in Europe over the refugee crisis. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. Q13 Fox in Seattle, negotiations continue aimed at averting a teachers' strike. While the union has won some victories, little progress is reported on testing, longer hours, and overall compensation. Fox 25 in Boston with a Nantucket boy's message in a bottle finding a reader in England. 12-year-old Grant Beebe tossed several bottles into the ocean in January of last year. Well, an Englishman out for a dive more than 3,200 miles away found one and sent video back to the station. And this is a live look at Las Vegas from Fox 5. The big story there tonight, the Air Force's take it or leave it offer to owners of remote Nevada property surrounded by a vast bombing range in that super secret Area 51. The Air Force is offering $5.2 million or vowing to seize the property through condemnation. The family that owns the land is rejecting the deal for now. That is tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.